Well, good morning. It's a beautiful sunny Sunday morning here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and today we're going to go over my first 90 days of full-time RVing expenses, and we're going to break down all the numbers for you coming up. So the way I'm going to do this is we're going to cover February, March, then April, and we're going to break down the camping expenses and the miscellaneous living expenses that are associated with each month, and then wrap it all up together. Okay, so let's look at my first month of February 2021, living full-time in my Super CRV. February 2021. The first night I stayed in Orange, which is a private campground, for 2 nights because I was having problems trying to get my tow bar fixed, so I couldn't do all that. The next one, 2 through 16, for a total of 14 days. 1, 2, 3. I stayed at 1,000 Trails Park in Palm Springs, California, and then from there for the next 7 days I moved to Desert Hot Springs, 2, 6, 7 days in a private park, and then from February 23rd through the end of the month, I went to another 1,000 Trailers. Oh my gosh, I need more coffee. I went to another 1,000 Trails park in Temecula, California, which is, well, it's actually a MENIFEE, but it's right outside, and that's where I stayed the rest of the month. So, private, 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 private. The reason why this is important is because all of the 1,000 Trails dates are part of my membership program. So I pay $145 a month to 1,000 Trails for this thing. So all these dates were part of that $145 a month. These 9 dates of private parks I had to pay for out of pocket. Okay, so let's talk about food. You know, there's one thing that happened on the road over these 90 days that I was not anticipating, and it kind of really surprised me, and it really has to do with how much I quit eating out and how much more I started cooking at the rig, or barbecuing or grilling especially. So in groceries in February, I ended up spending $773 in groceries. And trust me, for me, before I moved into full-time RVing, that was a lot. You know, it's hard to cook breakfast and hold a video camera all at the same time. In dining out, meals, entertainment, all that other kinds of stuff, in that month, in February, I ended up spending $1,297 in meals and entertainment. That does not include things for the rig. And in February on propane, I spent $0. That's because the tank on the rig was already full from when I picked it up in January. And these little propane tanks that I just used to light the barbecue grill, I didn't have yet, so I didn't need to fill that up. Speaking of fuel, in February, because I didn't do that much traveling, I only went from park to park, and they were all really close together. I only spent $48 in diesel for the rig between the 3 spots, from Palm Springs to Palm Desert to Desert Hot Springs. The Jeep here, on the other hand, I spent a lot more money on because I was driving a lot. I was still going back and forth to and from Long Beach and everything as I was getting full-time and getting everything settled in. In the Jeep fuel in February, I spent $242 in fuel. And the only other expense that I had that month that's relevant is the internet on that hotspot, that Wi-Fi hotspot. And that was $150, and that's for an unlimited, unthrottled AT&T internet Wi-Fi card. So altogether in February, for the meals, entertainment, groceries, propane, RV fuel, Jeep fuel, RV maintenance, all that other stuff, I ended up spending $2,510. This the camping fees, plus numbers I'm not going to, by the way, include in these recaps because they're going to vary. I'm not going to include any sort of RV payment or trailer payment that you may or may not have, just because that's going to vary for everybody, the same as insurance rates. So when you're looking at doing your own budgets, you're going to need to take like these estimates and then calculate what kind of rig and how much you're going to be paying for your own RV payments, your own insurance, whether it's for the rig and your tow vehicle or towed, or if you're going to have something you're going to tow, what your tow vehicle is going to be and all that. So I'm not going to include any of those. And also something to keep in mind when it comes to the groceries and the meals and entertainment line item, that's for one person. That's just me. That's not for a family of 4 or, you know, a couple roads cruising around. So those numbers for your own budgets, you might want to adjust accordingly as well. Now, March, on the other hand, was my most expensive month. So in March, I was still staying in Temecula and MENIFEE as part of the Trials and Trails, and that was I stayed there from March 1st through the 9th, so that's 8 days. So 1, 2, 7, 8 in MENIFEE, California. And then I moved up for 5 days to a private park in SEQUOIA National Park. So that was 5 days, so private 4, 5, yes. Then from there I had 1 night in Sacramento, which was a private park, and then I went for 14 days to a private park in Reno, Nevada, and that's why this one was so expensive. If you haven't seen the video I did on, it was called This Is Why I RV, it was a 2-part series, you'll see why this trip was so expensive. 14, 2, 3, 4, 13, 14. And then from there, I went 2 days to Winnemucca, Nevada, also private parks, private, and 1 night in West Wendover. So that's my 31 days in March. And you can see why campsites are going to be so expensive. I'll wrap up the campsites at the end, but you can see why I only had 8 days of Thousand Trails parks in March as opposed to as many as I did last time. So all these cost money. March was my most expensive month. So in March, on groceries, I spent $707, which was 70 bucks, pretty much less than what I had spent in March or in February. Dining out, meals and entertainment, all that, $1,957 for the month of March. RV fuel, because I did track some mileage then, $465 in the month of March. I did fill up with propane, that was $32, $102 in RV maintenance, and that was because of my screw up in SEQUOIA with my tow bar. You remember this? Ouch! Jeep fuel, $309 in Jeep fuel in the month of March, and internet for $150, bringing my March total to $3,722, plus campsite fees, which I will go over at the end of this video. So let's talk about April. you don't mind, I think I'm going to sit down for April because that was a big meal. Okay, got my notes here. April 2021. As far as camping goes, April 2021, I spent 6 days in Delta, Utah. Now, when I was booking my April, I was kind of looking at my March, and because it was so expensive, I wanted to try and even things out. So there were no Thousand Trails parks in Northern Nevada in that area that I was at. So Thousand Trails has a reciprocal with RPI, which is Resorts Park International, where you normally get a fairly decent, well, let me rephrase that. They advertise it as a bonus package when you join Thousand Trails, and you get $10 a night at, RPI campgrounds. Unfortunately, that's not typically true. Normally the $10 a night ones are like out in the middle of nowhere, or they just don't exist. Normally it's like 50% off the first night, then normal rates are, they're all different, is what I'm trying to say. Anyways, I was trying to find a way to reduce my camping expenses in April to offset the high cost in March. So instead of doing private campgrounds, I went to state campgrounds, and I found an RPI park for $10 a night in Delta, Utah. So that's where I stayed for 6 days. So 6 days of Resorts Park International at $10 a night. And then from there, for the next 6 days, I went to Salt Lake City, and that was also a state park. So 6 days at a state park in Salt Lake City. Then from there, I moved to Provo, Utah, where I stayed at another state park for another 6 days. And then I did one boondocking trip to the Big Red Barn, which was probably just like 20 miles south of Provo, which was fantastic. So I ended up staying there for 1 night. So I'm going to put Harvest Host in that box. And then 10 days at a private campground in St. George, Utah. So 1, 2, 10, 7, 14, 20, 28, 29. Okay, that's 29 days. I don't know where my other day went. Actually, I do. I missed one. Okay, so anyways, that's where we're at for April. That's how my campgrounds went out for April. Now, as far as expenses for the month of April, lowest amount I spent in groceries, I only spent $350 in groceries in the month of April. Dining out, also my lowest number of all 3 months, $1,158. RV fuel, $247, $0 in propane. My highest month, though, with fuel for the Jeep at $393. And that's mostly because where I stayed at in St. George, I did a lot of driving. I went into the Zion National Parks, I went into Mesquite, Nevada, and I did a lot of, you take a day and a half and explore St. George and you've seen it all. But going out, again, to Zion's, to Snow Canyon State Park, to Mesquite, and all these other different places, I spent a lot of money in fuel during that time. RV maintenance, didn't spend anything, and internet, I spent $150, same as all the other months. Okay, so let's recap this real quick, without the camping costs, because I'm going to go through the camping costs in a second. All my other expenses that do not include RV payment, RV insurance, any sort of insurance you're going to have on your tow vehicle, health, medical insurance, and whatever. These are just specifically related to RV travel. You can fill in the blanks on all the other things that you're going to need when you're on the road. So let's sum this up here. Over the 90 days, I stayed 28 days in a Thousand Trails park. I spent 6 days in an RPI park, 43 days at a private RV park, 12 days at state parks, and 1 day at a Harvest Host. When I take all of that combined and I add in my $450 on the Travel Trailers, I don't know why I keep saying that, Thousand Trails membership, it turns out that as it's all said and done, 90 days, I spent $3,042 on campsites, which equals out to an average of $33.80 per night. Now, take that $3,042, combine it with all of my other expenses that I had over the same 3-month period, February, March, and April. That was $8,530. That gives me a grand total of $11,572 spent in 90 days or just shy of $3,900 per month, so $3,857. So to be able to travel, to be able to live full time, to be able to do what I've done so far, it's cost me $3,800 this per month for the first 90 days, not including RV payment, RV insurance on the Jeep, or my cell phone bill, because that's a separate issue too. So those are all things you're going to want to add back. So overall, not horrible. I mean, some areas were a little more expensive than I thought they would be. Other areas are a little cheaper. So, you know, what you going to do? You know, I think the main takeaway that I would love to make sure that you understand is those are my numbers. That's pretty much far in line with what I thought I was going to be. I was hoping to be, you know, a little less in certain areas, but I surprisingly came in and under in other areas, which is great. So everything kind of washes out. But there's so many different types of ways that you can do full-time RVing. You can make RV living as inexpensive or as expensive as you choose. If you need help, you know, for sure, reach out to me, email me. I'm more than happy to kind of share my experiences with you, because that's what we're all about, is trying to help each other grow and learn and claim the vision. That's why my channel is called Claim the Vision, is to be able to help give you the confidence and the knowledge to be able to go out there and do the one thing that you've always been trying to do or wanting to do. So I think that pretty much covers it. This is, again, just part one of a 3-part series of 90 days on the road. My next video coming out is a conversation with my past self. So before, in January, before I went full-timing, I had expectations. I thought I knew what I was getting myself into. So I kind of recorded a little interview with myself for my future self, which is now. So we're going to cover all that. I'm going to answer questions of my previous self of things and assumptions that I made before I started full-timing, and then how it's going to answer as I've been doing that. And then part 3 is going to be what I intend to do differently over my next 90 days, or what I've learned and what I intend to change from where I've been right now. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for claiming the vision. Be sure to check out the other videos at the end of this link that's recommended for you that you haven't seen already, or maybe you want to re-see. And thank you again for watching Claim the Vision, where I'm working on a tagline, and I've got a few of them here, and it needs to be natural, you know, I need to just roll off the tongue. I don't think I'm there yet. Maybe I'll get that ready in one of our next videos. In the meantime, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks so much. We'll see you in the next video.